We didn't know what was going on. I knew he was ill because he was my second child, so I was familiar with temperatures and things like that, and I just thought, oh, it's just got normal temperature and he'll bounce back. I'll give him some Calpol and he'll be okay. But the Calpol didn't work.
It basically went from being absolutely fine at 4 months of age to being seriously ill to the point that he could have died.
His older brother had chicken pox, so it was possible he was going down with chicken pox, but he was really, really unhappy, which wasn't like Theo. Dead laid back baby. Everything was really easy with him. He was really quiet. The doctor put my mind at rest, and she actually checked him over for a rash, and she said, no rash, thank God. I still remember those words now. She said, no rash, thank God. So I kind of thought, oh well, that's fine, it's not anything serious.
We just didn't have any control over anything. It was, you know, we were in the hands of experts. It doesn't matter how long time passes, just to say things out loud, it's still horrible.
I was so worried about him that I slept with him in my bed, which I never did with my kids. I remember really clearly him crying and waving his hands in front of his face like this, which seemed really strange, and I sort of thought to myself, it's almost like he's got a headache. He was obviously in pain, but they just kept saying to me, yeah, just keep trying to, because he wasn't feeding, said keep trying to get some water down him and he'll bounce back. I carried on doing that, and I rang my GP and managed to get an appointment for 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I spoke to my mum on the phone, and she heard him crying, and she said that doesn't sound like a good cry. So 4 o'clock came round and I took him there, and she looked at him, and at this point he hadn't had any fluids, he wasn't taking any fluids, he wasn't feeding, he was starting to get a bit floppy, and she looked at me and she went, I'm worried about him. I think you should take him straight to A&E. So I did.
Amazingly, he was saved, but it left him with a traumatic brain injury, and the last 17 years have been trying to put him back together.
When we came out of hospital with him, there were so many things we didn't know what was going to happen, whether he'd walk and talk are the two things you worry about when you've got a child with a brain injury, but there's so many other things.
He's unable to walk without a lot of assistance.
He doesn't speak, but he communicates reasonably well now. He finds ways to let you know what he wants. Sometimes it's shouting and screaming, sometimes it's a lot of screaming. Sometimes he'll just take your hand and move it to what he wants, or he'll reach for something.
He has a powered wheelchair, which he still can't manage himself, so someone has to do the movement for that.
He uses very limited sign language. He'll take our hands and pat them to ask for more, and this is finished.
He is also deaf, but he does have a cochlear implant, which allows him to hear. Okay, so this is Theo's swing, and I'm just going to hook it up for him to use later. He loves this swing because not only does it go side to side, but we've put this little thing in so it can spin round and round, so it's a roundabout as well. Absolutely loves it. Theo's got a range of other stuff, so he's got a big old trampoline which he does physio on, and he does have a trike that he can go out on, but he has a lot of physio to keep him active and healthy.
3, 2, 1, turn up.
Huh?
Are we ready? Come on then. One, up. There you go. Ow, that's my toe. Oh, you said that my toe, Theo. I should know better than to transfer you with no shoes on, shouldn't I? Yes. Okay, come on then. Take a step. Up, two, and yeah. Down you go. There we go. Right, let's get the shoes off. So I took him to A&E and I still wasn't really panicking. I was just like, oh yeah, he is ill. And we got there and they sent us to the children's ward. And we sat there for a minute until a nurse came over and said, right, I'm really worried about your baby. He's going grey. I remember picking him out of his car seat and he was floppy. And at that point, all hell broke loose. And they grabbed him and they said, we need to do a lumbar puncture. We think he's got an infection on his brain, something seriously wrong with him. So they said, we can take him if you want, or you can come in with him. And I said, no, I'll come in with him, because there was no way I was leaving him. Well, that's when I really started to realise how serious it was. Probably the worst moment of my life was watching my little 4-month-old baby curled around while one of the nurses bent him in half and the doctor, I assume, did a lumbar puncture on his tiny, tiny little 4-month-old spine. And to their credit, they were brilliant. They did it first time, but when they let him go, they'd had to curl him round so tightly that he'd stopped breathing. So then they had to resuscitate him. So I watched my little baby being resuscitated, and that's something that will probably never leave me, although I try not to talk about it and think about it too much these days. It's behind, it's in the past.
How has Theo affected your life growing up, or your social life?
Well, it's always been a bit awkward and difficult with like friends coming around and stuff.
Oh yeah.
And having like Theo being ill or having to go to hospital.
Oh, that's very difficult because it takes up your week, doesn't it?
Yeah. But generally, most people are all right with it.
Have you had much judgment from people, or ever felt a bit guilty or anything?
Not really.
That might be something I experience more, because obviously I've been around as well, so you've had a bit more support, and Theo's a bit older now, so he's a lot more mature. That might. When I was a bit younger, I often felt like I couldn't introduce him to people and felt a bit guilty to be in public with him.
Yeah, it is a little bit maybe awkward and kind of scary and nerve-wracking sometimes.
When you go into like a theme park or something, and everyone's looking at you because he's shouting.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're quite close with him, or do you feel a bit disconnected?
Well, obviously I'm quite close to him because I still live with him.
Yeah, that's a difference for me because I'm at university.
Yeah, but I do sometimes feel a bit disconnected when he's doing other stuff and it's just me, mum and dad instead of all four of us.
Yeah, and when he goes and does stuff with the carers as well. But sometimes it's nice to have that breathing space. Yeah,
it's nice getting to go to places with just you, just mum and dad sometimes.
As we were saying before, it can be a bit awkward in public situations, so it is nice to go out and feel like a bit of a, not normal family, but just a bit quieter.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Might be easier to bring the bench up with them. They put him in a little bed on the high dependency unit, stuffed him full of broad spectrum antibiotics, and when they said he was stable, I went and rang my husband. I remember saying, don't panic, but they think it's meningitis. And everything just kind of felt like it was in real slow motion. And I just went and sat with him. His consultant turned up and I said, am I going to lose him? And he said, it's possible. I honestly thought at that point that I was going to have to prepare myself to lose my second child. And I remember thinking to myself, well, you know what? People lose babies. It happens. And while we were sat there watching him, and the nurse was with me, and she said, oh, hasn't he got beautiful blue eyes? And he really does have these incredible blue eyes. And I was looking into them, and then she looked at me and she looked at him and she said, "That's not right." And his beautiful blue eyes were wide open and staring, and his pupils were really big.
Oh, are we going to have any screaming today? We're nearly finished already. Lovely bit of pasta there. You look hungry. I got you to smile. I think you're thinking this is delicious. You look very, very entertained. What is going on in that head? What's that for? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You got... You're so petty. You just got pasta on us. Very demanding. Is it time to get Alice and Luke? Yeah? Shall I go and get them?
Just pull them back a bit. That's it. Go on then, let's go. Come on.
Basically, they ended up intubating him. He was having a seizure, at which point that he needed to go to intensive care. I'm not sure what order it was all in, but I remember at one point we decided we hadn't had him baptised, and we thought, well, shit, we better get him baptised just in case. I try and live in the moment a lot more now. I would like him to stay in college until he's 25, because I think the more education he can get, the better, and he just loves it.
Probably end up still staying very close to Theo. We'd probably end up still living here for a long old time with Theo.
Get old and spend time with my family.
There's lots of things he could do, and there's things that he likes doing. Theo's future is an absolute unknown, really.
I hope he outlives me and has a fantastically happy life, which he does most of the time.